In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a reverse canvas so you can spice up your fall decor. We are going to be making two types of canvases. So the first one's going to be a little more traditional, and then we'll do one with a more modern farmhouse vibe. And I'm also going to give you some tips on how to purchase your canvases and how to fix frames when you end up with one that's not so great. If you're new here, my name is Nisha. Welcome to Little Craft Nest. And if you're interested in crafting and Cricut tutorials, please consider pressing that subscribe button and hitting that notification bell so you won't miss a video. The supplies you're going to be needing for this project are an art canvas that you can get at the dollar store or Michael's or anywhere they sell art supplies, a contour knife, some paint or stain, and a paintbrush, iron on vinyl, a Cricut cutting mat, and weeding tools, and a lint brush. You'll also need your Easy Press or a heat press or Easy Press Mini. If you don't have one of those, don't worry, you can use your home iron for this project. You'll also need some hot glue and a Cricut cutting machine. I'll be using my Cricut Maker today. If you have another type of die cutting machine, you can use that as well. Now there are some other optional materials you may need depending on what type of sign you need. So you may want to grab a staple gun, some wood filler, a pair of pliers, and some sandpaper, and maybe even a palm sander. Now I know this is a large list of supplies, so I'll leave a list down below in the description of this video. Now here is a canvas that I made several years ago. I take it out every year at Thanksgiving. I just absolutely love this sign. And you'll notice on this sign how the edges are nice and flat. And sometimes you can find edges like that, and sometimes they are beveled like this frame here. You'll notice the grooves on this frame. So when you're shopping for canvases, you can pick it up off the shelf and you can feel right at the top to see if there is an indent there or not. So depending on the type of frame you're going for, you may want that groove in there, but you also may want it flat. So when I went shopping earlier, I was unable to find a flat edge frame. All the ones I found were beveled. So I'll be showing you a trick later what you can do if you can only find beveled frames and you want that flat edge. The first thing we need to do is remove the canvas from the frame. So I'm going to grab my Cricut True Control knife and I'm going to slice down the outside of the staples. Now the corners have some extra material folded on them, so you may have to go over the corners a second time to be able to get your canvas off the frame. The back of our frame has a number of staples on it, but we don't need to worry about that unless you have one kind of sticking up kind of halfway. You might want to get a pair of pliers and pull that out, or you can get a hammer and hammer them back in. With our finished product, we won't be able to see the staples at all, so it's up to you if you want to go ahead and remove those or not. Now this frame looks pretty good. It's in really good condition, and I want to give this more of a traditional feel, so I'm just going to use some wood stain on it, and the color I'm using is Espresso. I realized I didn't stir it well enough with the first coat, so I re-stirred and added some more stain and just used some paper towel to remove the excess. Technically, you should be using a lint-free cloth to remove the stain so that you don't get any fibers of the paper towel stuck to your project, but this was a small project and the paper towel was close by, so I used that. Once I was finished staining, I let it sit and dry. Now I opened up a second frame, and this frame was not in good condition. It had some chipped corners and it just wasn't looking that great. So I took it outside, got my DeWalt palm sander out, and I sanded the edges, just trying to make those corners smooth. And then I decided, well, let's try to make the whole frame smooth so I get that box look. So I was able, with my sander, to smooth out all those ridges, and I got a really nice looking frame. But while I was doing that, my frame fell apart, but that's okay because they're pretty easy to put back together again. So the frame just slides together in these grooves, and I had a staple in the way, so I just got my pliers and I removed that staple, and then I took out my staple gun just to secure those corners back together again. My corners still didn't look perfect after I sanded, so I decided to get some wood filler out and fill in the corners and then let my wood filler sit and dry for a little while. Once it was dry, I sanded it once again, but this time instead of using my palm sander, I just did it by hand. and I smoothed out that wood filler that I put on the frame. And instead of using stain this time, I took out some Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color charcoal and painted the frame. And then once again, after this had dried, I took out the sandpaper and just roughed up the edges a little bit to give it more of that rustic, distressed look. Then I just took out a wet wipe and removed some of the sanding dust. Now that our frames are looking good and ready, let's jump over to the computer and get our designs cut out. Here's the design we made in my last video when I talked about how to curve text. If you missed that video, feel free to go check that out. I'll leave a link down below in the description so you know how to make this design. So our image is already all attached together, so it's ready to make, but we need to size it. So we need to measure the inside of our frame. So the inside of our frame is 6 by 8. So we can go over to shapes and insert a square, and we can change the dimensions, unlock the bottom of your square, then just go to the top, and we're going to do width of 6 and height of 8. And let's zoom out so you can see better here. Actually, I want to do this on a horizontal canvas, so I'm just going to change the sides here. Let's do 8 by 6 instead of 6 by 8. All right, so here is our canvas. Let's just make that a lighter color. Go to colors, we're going to put a light gray there, and then we're going to move our image on top. So once you click on the image, go to arrange at the top and move to front. And we're going to put this here. And right now our image is too big. It's going to end up hiding underneath our frame. So we're going to shrink that down a bit. Going to zoom back in here. And we want to have a bit of a white border going around, so we don't want to make it too big. So I have this now sized down to 5.6 by 4.9, almost 5. And that seems like it'll be a good size. So we can go ahead and get rid of our square and go to the top right and press make it. And because we're using heat transfer vinyl, we are going to have to mirror our image. So below our mat, click on the mirror button and then press continue. And we're going to select iron on for this project. Let's load up our mat and get this image cut out. When working with heat transfer vinyl, we need to place the shiny side down on our mat and have the dull side facing us. Once our design is cut out, it's time to weed it. There are a few really tiny pieces in this design, so if you're having trouble remembering what pieces you need to weed, you can go back and open Design Space and just on your screen reverse your image, and that way you'll remember what needs to be weeded. Once our design is all weeded out, I'm going to turn on my Easy Press Mini. I'm just going to set this to medium. If you're having trouble determining what setting to put your heat press on, jump over on the computer to the Cricut heat press guide and it'll give you step-by-step instructions there. If you're unfamiliar with the Cricut heat press guide, I'll leave a link down below in the description for that. Now, if you're using a home iron, what you want to do is turn any steam settings off, and then you're going to put your home iron to the hottest setting. And it may take you a little longer to press your design compared to if you're using a heat press, but you can just gently test that out by pulling back your carrying sheet to see if it's sticking. If it's not, just lay it back down and keep applying more pressure until your design is stuck on your canvas. Before we press our design on, we need to just clean our canvas with a lint roller, and we're going to preheat our fabric for a few seconds to remove any moisture. Then we are going to center our design and press it for 25 seconds. And just to be extra sure that it's on there, we're going to flip over our canvas and press it for another 10 seconds. Now, I laid some parchment paper on top of the back of this canvas just because the other side of this canvas is painted. So just to be safe, I don't want any paint transferring onto my press. Then we can remove our transfer sheet. You can tell our design is transferred well because you can see the texture of the canvas kind of coming through the vinyl. Now, to attach our canvas back to the frame, I'm going to use my hot glue gun. I like to try to add the glue more towards the inside of the frame. I'm going to flip this over just to make sure the design is where I want it. Then I'm going to finish by gluing the other sides down. Once it's on, we can take our Cricut knife and just cut the edges of the canvas. Here are our finished frames. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. And if you enjoyed this project, please hit that like button. And I hope to see you on more crafting adventures.